All right, guys. So the 2018 Accord with the blown head gasket issue that I've been talking about in multiple videos. Finally, I'm getting to make a video about it. So here it is. This is the, not a, but the 2018 Honda Accord LX with the 1.5 liter turbo and 93,000 miles that just had an engine replacement 3,000 miles ago because it blew the head gasket on the original engine. Since it's at 93,000 miles, I figured I'm close enough to 100,000 miles to make a 100,000 mile owner's review of the 2018 Accord LX. So I'm gonna try and structure my video with actual organization. Right now I'm still winging it, don't get me wrong, but first I want to talk about just how the car was designed, like little design features or issues that I have complaints about, and then we'll talk a little bit about the engine. I won't ramble on. I'll just kind of go over the old engine and what happened to it. So hopefully anyone watching this video that also has one of these cars and has similar problems, at least I guess, can have some sort of insight on what might be happening to their car. Hopefully it doesn't, because it sucked. But all right, so like I said, obviously it's an Accord. It's a 2018 and it's an LX with the 1.5. Now that I've said that 3 times, design feature number 1 that I don't like, I was gonna go inside the car, but I'll do that in a second. Design feature number 1 that I don't like. What do you guys see? That's a license plate light, and the camera, there's no external trunk button. So on the LX specifically, there is no way to pop your trunk from the outside of the car. If you get an EX or above, they give you a trunk button. But to cut costs on the LX, there is no external trunk button. And that, okay, you guys are saying, no big deal, just pop it from the button on the inside. Well, that'd be a great idea, wouldn't it? Issue with that is the button on the inside is located right here, basically flat, facing straight up on the door. What happens to this button? Let me see if I close the window, if that glare goes away. Not really. All right. Well, over time, what happens to this button is it gets stuck in the down position. So I could push this all I want. You can see it's not moving. That's because it is all the way down. It gets stuck. You could try and clean it. You can try and spray electrical cleaner in there. Doesn't work. So I actually had to take the door panel off and disconnect that button, because what kept happening is this button gets stuck down, and my trunk would randomly open up in the middle of the night, and I'd come out to the car in the morning and my trunk would be wide open. So that button's useless. If you don't want your trunk to randomly open and you don't want that button to get stuck, you can't use that button either. So there's no button on the outside, and this button is inevitably designed to fail and get stuck. Just the way it's designed, like the gaps are way too big, so it gets crumbs in there, and it's facing straight down, so anything will fall right into it. It's just designed to fail. So don't rely on that button. So like I said, can't use that. No button in the back. What do you have? Well, the only decently normal way to open the trunk is with the remote. But this button does not work with the car running. So say you got to grab something from your trunk real quick before you drive off. You have to shut the car off and then press the button. And then the trunk opens. Then you could turn the car back on the very hot day that you are trying to open your trunk on. It's 86 degrees here today, but it's like 70% humidity, so it feels like 95. Honestly, it's disgusting. By the way, there's the mileage of the car, 93,000 and change. Trunk open. So now I'll go show the trunk again. Put this window down so the car doesn't lock me out. Not that it ever has, but I don't trust modern cars with power locks because my Toyota has locked me out of it with it running a couple times. But yeah, here's a better view of the trunk. No trunk button here. Big trunk though. I don't know if you guys can see. Very spacious trunk, and then you could put down the back seat at least and have there's a very large pass through. Put things back there. Very usable once you open it, but you know, it's a pain in the behind to open. And you could close it up. Also, on top of the remote's not the only way, I guess I should say, to open the trunk. What I found is that if you open the back driver's side door and here's the back seat, right? I want to show you guys where this is. If you open the back door, go in the back seat, go behind the driver's side rear headrest in the back, and there's a cover here. I keep it off because, you know, I like to get into my trunk as easy as possible, right? There's a little cable, so you pop the plastic cover off and you find a cable. If you pull said cable, it pops the trunk. So if you want to get into your trunk on your Accord LX, your options after 90,000 miles are your key fob or that cable. And like I said, trunk is open now again, and we will close it. So that is design flaw number one that I have a complaint about. Design flaw number two, I guess we'll talk about the mirrors. So the mirrors on both sides, this side mirror and then the side mirror on the passenger side, both of them just love falling out. They don't like to stay there. And what I mean by that is the actual glass itself just decides to fall out whenever it wants. So like sometimes if you just simply shut the door, this mirror twice now, the glass part just falls out, falls onto the ground, and breaks into a million pieces. So this is its third mirror on this side and its second mirror on that side. That side, the mirror fell out going through a car wash. It went through a car wash. The little flapper towel things were just, you know, gently slapping against this mirror, and the glass on this side went bloop and right into the tracks and broke into a million pieces as well. That side, like I said, has happened. It's fallen out 3 times now. This is on its second mirror on the passenger side. What else? I know there's plenty. I guess number 3, we will talk about how horrible the sound system is in the Accord LX. The speakers in this car, specifically the LX, I can't talk about the EX because I don't have experience with one, but this LX, you're not going to enjoy listening to the radio in this car. The sound system is extremely underpowered. I even tried putting upgraded $80 Pioneer, are they Pioneer? Either Pioneer, I think Kenwood's actually. I put $80 Kenwood speakers in the front doors of this car, and because of how low power the bass stereo system is on the LX, it didn't help at all. The stereo system in this car, you don't get any bass. It's not that clear. It's there so you don't have to drive in silence. But you're not going to enjoy listening to music in this car. It's not crisp, it's not bassy. And even if you replace the speakers, you're not going to get much more out of it. You'll get a little bit, but what I found is just the voltage for the, not voltage, wattage, I think wattage is the actual proper term. There's not enough power in the stereo system in this car. It needs either an amplifier and probably a better head unit that actually puts out more power. But good luck replacing the head unit because it's extremely oddly shaped, and I think there's like one aftermarket option you can go with, and I don't even know if it's any better. But for a commuter, it's really not worth, unless you really like your music, it's not worth putting all that energy and money into just to get actual decent sounding music out of your car. But Don't expect to buy an Accord LX and have decent sound coming from your radio. I guess we could talk about next the trim in the middle. It's easily scratchable, I guess, like pretty cheap. The finish is coming off. Like, this isn't dirty. This is like the finish is coming off of it. And I don't even, like I said, I don't even know how that happened. It just, over time, I'm like, wow, this looks really crappy, or, oh, that looks dirty. Let me try and clean it. Try and clean it. Oh, wait, no, the finish came off of it. There's no cleaning that needs to be done. So there's that. Crumbs get stuck all in this because the gaps are too big and it's at a weird spot. I mean, I do have to clean it. I can clean it better, but, you know, it's a daily driver. So you have food here, you're eating, whatever. Crumbs get in there. That's just how it is. Overall, I keep the car clean, and it is, I maintain it. It is meticulously maintained. It's not neglected. So far, don't access the trunk. Good luck listening to music if you enjoy listening to music from your radio, and watch out for your mirrors because they'll fall out and you'll need to go to Honda and buy new ones and put them in, and then they'll fall out again. I don't know why they do that. Maybe it's just this car, but I really can't imagine that it's just this car because I didn't do anything to the mirrors to make them fall out. So, and they won't stay in. No matter what, I get the new mirror and I put it in and it won't stay in. I don't know. Also, a complaint, this radio, it looks cool, I guess, but it's not touchscreen. So, like, you know, you think you would touch these to change the radio? No. They're just there. This is just a display. If you want to go to that radio station, you have to click that button. If you want to go to settings, you have to hit this button and then scroll with this scrolly scroll thing. Speaking of the scrolly scroll, the little dial tune knob here, another complaint that I have with this vehicle. Ooh, I'm going to save the biggest for last. I almost forgot about it, but this isn't it. After this one. Ready? Okay. The tire pressure monitoring system will come on all the time for no reason, and you can check your tire pressure and it'll all be fine, or it'll be like 1 psi off, and say you go, then you go, you put air in the tire, you make it all even, dead on where it's supposed to be, accurate. The tire pressure light won't shut off for a while if you don't manually calibrate it. If you want it to go off and actually like be functional and let you know if your tires are actually low, you have to go to tire or vehicle settings and then TPMS calibration and then hit calibrate. That's how you turn your tire pressure light off in this car. It's not like any other modern car where it just checks constantly, and if the tire's low and you put air in the tire, the light goes out. No, you have to manually go there and reset it. And also, it will come on for no reason. It came on. The reason I'm mentioning this is because it just came on to me. It didn't come on to me. It just came on for me right before I started filming this video. It came on, and I was like, oh my God, do I have a nail in my tire? So I got my tire gauge, and I checked all of the tires, and they're all at 35 PSI. Every single one of them. You know, the 4 that are on the car. I don't know if the spare donut has a sensor in it. It's just a donut, but I'll check that too after the video. And this isn't the first time that's happened. This is, the tire pressure light will randomly come on for no reason. Since the car was new, it will randomly come on, and I'll think I have a tire that's going flat on me, and all the tires are completely fine. But despite the mirrors falling out of the housings, despite not being able to get into the trunk, despite not being able to enjoy music in this car, and despite the tire pressure monitoring system that is pretty useless, the biggest complaint I have about this car, which I think is extremely dangerous, is that when this car gets a check engine light, the car will cut power and go into a limp mode that does not allow you to go above 10 miles an hour. So if the car detects a misfire, or if a O2 sensor comes on, or if you blow your head gasket and your car starts overheating like mine does and it makes the check engine light come on, guess what? Even if you're doing 80 miles an hour down the freeway, if that check engine light comes on, you're slowing down to 10. So you better have a good spot to pull over. The only way to get back up to speed and allow the car to let you go above 10 miles an hour again is by clearing the check engine light. So if you have a 2018 Accord, and I'm assuming, 2018 Accord Plus, with the 1.5 specifically, I don't know about the 2.0, but if you either own one of these cars or you're planning on owning one of these cars, I would highly recommend keeping a cheap code scanner in your glove box or in your console. Because if you ever get a check engine light and you're in a bad spot to pull over and you're too far away from home to limp it back to your house at 10 miles an hour, you're going to be stranded and you're going to need a tow unless you have a code scanner to clear the check engine light. So if you're a female, like my girlfriend who drove this car when it was new until it started leaving her stranded, and now she has another car because she doesn't want a car that leaves her stranded, rightfully so. I don't want her in a car that leaves her stranded either. Either don't buy this car or learn how to use a code scanner and learn how to clear your codes, because that's what I had to teach my girlfriend how to do. When this car left her stranded a couple times, I taught her how to use the code scanner to clear the codes so that she could actually get back home, which came out to be very handy and useful, because after the car left her stranded a couple of times and I had to go rescue her with my code scanner, we put a code scanner in here and it did come in handy, because the check engine light would come on when she was an hour away from her house, and thankfully she had the code scanner to clear the code and take the car out of limp mode, because otherwise she would not have, I would have had to either go get her. She was multiple times the car left her stranded in a bad place, in a bad area. Anyone know of Newark, New Jersey? Because this car left her stranded there before in the middle of the summer on a hot 90-degree day. So yeah, just stuff like that. But other than the check engine light coming on and putting the car into complete dangerous, not allowed to go over 10 mile an hour mode, even for like an O2 sensor, or for this car, it was for misfires and overheating. Biggest design flaw, that 1.5 liter turbo engine. Like I said in multiple videos in the past, and unfortunately what I had to deal with, look how nice look how well I know how to open this hood. Latch is right there, pop it up. Very hot under here. Okay, come on. So this 1.5 liter turbo engine, Earth Dreams, me and my girlfriend have a joke. It's we say it's actually Earth Nightmares, not Earth Dreams. But so this engine, big design flaw that, in my opinion, anyone watching this video or considering this car should stay away from. Maybe I just got a lemon, maybe I just got a bad engine, but I'm gonna say it's fair to assume that I'm not going to be the only person with engine problems on this car with the 1.5. This is actually, like I said, I don't know if I said actually, but this is this car's second engine. This is not the original engine. This engine was just put in 3,000 miles ago, and it now has about 5,000 miles on it. The car has 93,000 miles, but that engine is basically brand new. What happened to the old engine is it all started with, at about 35,000 miles, I noticed the car was consuming a lot of oil, about a quart every 1,000 miles, right? So about 1 quart every 1,000 miles the car was burning. Since then, I took it to multiple Honda dealers, told them that it was burning a lot of oil, and they didn't want to help. They said, oh, anything under a quart and a half every 1,000 miles is considered normal by Honda corporate. And I said, really? Because that kind of seems extremely excessive to me. Then as time went on and we did oil consumption tests, and none of the dealers I went to wanted to help me and they kept pushing me away, the car started to burn closer to 2 quarts every 1,000 miles. So we did more oil consumption tests, and these cars have a 3-year, 60,000 mile warranty, right? So what Honda, all the Honda dealers in my area did, about 4 or 5 of them, is they said, do oil consumption test, do oil consumption test, do oil consumption test. Sorry, 1.5 quarts is normal. And so what they would do is play games like change the oil for me after the oil consumption test, and put what I noticed is they were actually overfilling the oil on the car, so that when the car came back in 1,000 miles, it didn't look like it burned as much as it actually was burning. They were purposely overfilling the oil on the car, so it didn't look like it was burning as much as it did. But it was still burning 1.5 quarts, even with an extra quart of oil in it. So, long story short, the Honda dealers ran me out of warranty, and as soon as I hit 60,000 miles, after doing 15 to 20 oil consumption tests, they said, "Oh, sorry, you're out of warranty by mileage." And I said, "What do you mean? I've been having this problem since 35,000 miles." And they said, "Nope, sorry, doesn't matter. You're at 60,000, you're out of warranty. Tough luck." So I reached out to Honda Corporate. Honda Corporate basically told me to screw off, despite my family having 3 Hondas in the driveway. They didn't care about that, which I wouldn't buy a Honda just for the way Honda Corporate treated me alone, let alone the dealers, let alone the problems I've been having with the car. But so since nobody wanted to help me, figured I have the car, I'm stuck with the car, I have to drive the car. I'll drive it, I'll use it. At about 70,000 miles, the car started randomly misfiring like I was talking about. The check engine light was coming on, and not only was it having random cylinder misfires that I could not pin to one cylinder because I was playing around with the coil packs and stuff. I pulled the spark plugs. The spark plugs all looked good. I'd switched the coil packs around when a misfire code came up for, like, say, cylinder number 2. So I say, okay, I'll switch cylinder number 2's coil pack with cylinder number 4, and we'll see if the misfire moves. Well, the second time it misfired, it was on cylinder number 1. I didn't touch cylinder number 1, you know? And it was like that. It misfired and left my girlfriend stranded a couple of times. And every time it was a different cylinder that, you know, didn't correlate to me changing the coil packs or anything. All the spark plugs looked good. So on and so forth. So what my girlfriend did is we put a scanner in the car, and we said, okay, until we can figure out what the issue is, or we can make it stop happening, or hopefully it just stops happening itself. If that happens, just clear the codes and drive the car. So from oil consumption, it went to misfiring, and then another 15,000 miles or so later of it just randomly doing that. Check engine light would come on once every 2 weeks for a misfire for 2 seconds, and then the car would clear up. Check engine light, we'd, clear the code, and it would be fine for another 2 weeks. After that, last summer, my girlfriend was driving the car, and the car started to overheat, and she got stranded with the car overheated. She called me, told her to let the car cool down. Once the temperature gauge came back down, try and get it as far as she could without overheating it back home. And if it started to overheat again, shut it off, let it cool down, get it back down here, and I will look at it. Which I wound up going to get her anyway, and following her home because, she doesn't know much about cars. But so we got the car home and realized that, whoa, wow, where'd the coolant go? There's no coolant in the reservoir. That's weird. So we parked the car, went to Honda, got Honda coolant. Just like every oil change on this car, even though I did myself, I went to the Honda dealer, got a Honda oil filter and Honda oil. So we went to Honda, got coolant, put coolant in, burped the system, made sure all the air was out of it, and another 2 weeks later, my girlfriend calls me up again. She's stranded with the car because it's overheating again. I think that was the time that she was stranded in the middle of Newark on a 95-degree day. So she knew the drill because we just did it. Let the car cool down, put the heat on high blast, put the windows down, and drove it back home as far as she could until it overheated, let it cool down again, repeat the process. Put more coolant in it, so on and so forth. After the overheating, only about a month after the overheating issues that we were dealing with and, trying to fix, you know, put coolant in it, make sure there's no air in the system, try and drive it, and hopefully it doesn't do that again. The car started to be very, very low on power. It was a lot slower than it used to be. So finally we decided, you know what, even though the Honda dealers were completely useless the whole last 50,000 miles we were driving the car, let's take it in and see if they could figure out the issue. So we took the car in, told them it was overheating, misfiring, and low on power, and they diagnosed it with the blown head gasket at 90,000 miles. And they told us, sorry, tough luck. Even though obviously, to me, I'm like, why should I have to put a new engine in this car at 90,000 miles? We have recorded every single perfect maintenance, every 5,000 mile oil changes. You know, there's no reason this engine that's stock should be bad. The engine should last at least 100,000 miles, and that's bare minimum, in my opinion. I expect my engine to last a lot longer than 100,000 miles being maintained perfectly. But Honda corporate didn't want to do anything about it. And they said, you know what? Here, this is what we'll do for you. If you want to give us $15,000 to put a new engine in your car, we'll gladly put a new engine in your car. Other than that, you can do whatever you want with the car, but it's going to have the same engine. So we wound up putting a junkyard engine in it. The engine that's in it right now only had 2,000 miles when it got in the car, when it went in the car. And it went in the car at 90,000 miles, and now 93, you know, 2,000 plus 3,000 is 5,000. The engine in it only has 5,000 miles on it now. But yeah, so we put a junkyard engine in it for, you know, a lot cheaper than $15,000, but still expensive. And now it's running okay, finally again, after a long, long time. So let's recap. Don't expect to get into your trunk. Watch your mirrors. Make sure they don't fall out. What else did I say? Sound system, I think, was next. Then, you know, cheap trim. The finish coming off of the trim here. And engine problems. Overall, I would say stay away from this car at the end of the day. Now the car has 90,000 miles on it, and I'm stuck with it. Oh, and I forgot about the tire pressure sensors. And I think there was one other thing, but I can't remember right now what it was. If I do remember, I'll make another video about it. But, yeah, so those are the complaints I've had with the car since I've owned it. Not to mention, I mean, the seats after 2 or 3 hours get pretty uncomfortable. They're comfortable when you first sit in the car at the dealer, but after 2 or 3 hours of sitting in them, your back starts to hurt and your feet start to hurt because of the position of the pedals. Maybe that's just me, but that's my experience. Also, this car has a CVT. I mean, so far it's been okay, but it's still a CVT. Hopefully it lasts a while, but at this point, I don't know. But long story short, I mean, especially if you're like a female that just wants to, not even, I don't mean to be sexist, but like if you're a girl that doesn't know much about cars and you want to buy yourself a reliable car that you can trust to get you wherever you need to go, and you don't want to be stranded on the side of the road, you know, which is completely understandable because it's dangerous, I would stay away from a Honda Accord. You know, I can't claim, obviously, that all of these cars are going to have these engine problems and leave you stranded, but I also think it's unlikely that my car is the only car that is going to be problematic out of all the 2018 Accords or out of all the Hondas with the 1.5 turbo. So, also, I mean, I know for a fact I'm not the only person with problems, because now that cars are getting higher mileage on them. Oh, I want to talk about the horn next. I just remembered. Now that these Hondas are getting closer to the mileage that I have on mine, I'm reading online that cars are starting to have similar issues, which is why I wanted to make this video. And by similar issues, I mean the misfiring, the check engine lights that are coming on while people are going down the highway that are dangerously forcing them to slow down to 10 miles an hour, almost causing accidents, stuff like that. Those things are starting to happen. I'm seeing it on the internet of people complaining about it. So I guess this is a buyer beware or an owner beware. If your car is randomly misfiring and you can't figure out why, and it feels like it might be low on power when it isn't misfiring, pay attention to your head gasket, pay attention to your coolant level, pay attention to your oil level. Because if that's happening to you, I'd hate to say that it most likely is, but I feel like it's fair to say that it most likely is that your car is blowing its head gasket. These 1.5 engines, in my opinion, are too small to handle the 23 pounds of factory boost that Honda designed them with, especially at like 2,000 RPMs is when the boost comes on, which, for a 1.5 pushing 23 pounds of boost at 2,000 RPMs, that's a lot of pressure in those cylinders. Personally, I think that's what the problem is. I mean, I'm no engineer, but I can't imagine that who is that? I can't imagine that design is going to last a while in any car. If you're, driving it, if you have to accelerate. So, at the end of the day, if you're looking at buying one of these, whether it's used or new, at least, maybe consider a 2.0, but stay away from the 1.5. Like I said, I can't guarantee that all of the 1.5s are going to have issues like this, but this car was meticulously maintained. It wasn't beat on. We didn't drag race it. We didn't street race it. It was just a commuter car. And maybe I'm super unlucky and I got a lemon, but according to my research online with people having very similar issues so far, it doesn't seem like it. Personally, I think the 1.5 is a badly designed engine. So far, this engine's been okay, but it only has 5,000 miles on it. So, I don't know. If you're looking at one of these cars, personally, I would advise to stay away from it. I have had very bad luck with this car. We bought this car for my girlfriend to have a new, nice, reliable car to commute in to school and work, and it has been everything but. It has been everything but reliable, and to the point where we had to go out and get her a second car to replace this one, because this car we didn't trust anymore. So, if I were you, I would go look at Camrys, Fusions, even Malibus, something other than this. This tiny little 1.5 liter 4-cylinder with a turbo pushing way too much pressure into it. It's not a design for longevity and reliability. It's a design for fun, quick power that doesn't